Okay, Chapter 12 discussion question. Examine the landmark case Brown versus Board of Education. Discuss the main points and emphasize of the case. Why did the court readdress these points of emphasis in Brown versus Board of Education, also known as Brown 2?
Okay. So first I talked about how Brown v. Board of Education overturned what was separate but equal. So the important part there is they acknowledge that we can no longer have our students be separated and receive an equal education. And so the first initial goal with Brown v. Board of Education 1 was to remove that and have students get into a desegregated classroom, a unity. Unfortunately, the actual implementation of this took a while due to a couple of various obstacles. Um, one of those I'll mention is the wording of all deliberate speed. So their idea was this needs to be done in all deliberate speed. Because of that, as we know with law and law jargon and rulings, like sometimes this leaves it rather vague when you're talking about big issues. So this vagueness allowed for further delays from various districts. Uh, they interpret that message differently. What is all deliberate speed? And so that was kind of one obstacle or point of emphasis that they struggled with initially.
Okay, so I was looking at the main points of Brown 2, and it was more how to implement desegregation in schools, and that the court decided that schools should desegregate. And I wrote down that local and state governments were told to take action to do that, and the courts would oversee it. And then the schools were given instructions on how to carry out that desegregation.
Um, Another thing I had in there was just Southern states attempted to use legal loopholes, threats, and or intimidation to delay or prevent desegregation. Um, Mostly focusing on the legal loopholes, like it was said, just with law and wording and all the things they did not necessarily consider in the initial Brown v. Board of Education. Um, it was a system of trials and errors, which I thought was an interesting way that the Chief Justice described it. Um,
Mm.
What's the other thing? One thing I would add, I guess, was eventually we have the presidential, our president gets involved in the 70s and that probably is part of it to combat the challenge with this in the South and just making sure that some of these changes are happening and that Brown v. Board is actually getting enacted globally or at least within the United States. Um, and so that was a big part. Anything else?
I think that's great.
Okay.